Hi everyone. In this unit, we're going to be talking about loops. And this is kind of a fun topic. We use loops to accomplish repetition in a program. And basically in C++, I have some notes, some comments in here. In C++, we have two styles of loops, two basic styles of loops. We have the for loop and the while loop. I like to start with the for loop because it's easy for beginners. It's really hard to mess up. And then we'll move on to the while loop in later videos. But before we begin, let me talk about what we're doing here is counter-controlled repetition. And, well, here, let me run this program. We are going to write a program that will fill the console here with yellow smiley faces. We have 5,000 yellow smiley faces. And the best way to accomplish something like this, of course, is with a loop. Could I just write C out and print the smiley face and copy that line and paste it 5,000 times? Yeah, I could, but that would be a tremendous amount of redundant code. So the better way to do it is with a loop, and I've done it with a for loop here, and I'll explain all of the parts of this loop. But basically, we're doing counter-controlled repetition, and this program is an example of that. With the 5,000 smiley faces, the loop counted 5,000 of them, so that's what we call counter-controlled. And basically, when you do counter-controlled repetition, there are always these three essentials you kind of have to be aware of and account for in your code. First of all, a counter variable, and this is just an integer variable. You can imagine it as like a little guy counting on his fingers behind the scenes. Like in this case, he counted to 5,000, and with every number he printed a smiley face. So if you can imagine it like that, it's not like that. But so we have a counter variable that'll be an integer variable. And then we have a loop condition, and this is a relational expression using greater than or less than whatever. So a loop condition, and this will evaluate to true or false. And when it evaluates to true, the loop keeps going, but eventually it's going to become false, and then that's when the loop stops. And we'll look at an example of that. And then finally, the increment expression, which is where we're incrementing the counter and, keeping it moving up until eventually, in this case, we would reach 5,000 smiley faces, and finally the loop would end. You always want to provide a way for the loop to end. Otherwise, it's just going to keep running forever. Okay, so let's look at the code. We have this, I just put these are like old fashioned characters that I looked up these codes on the internet. We don't have to know what these mean, but the smiley face is in there, and we have a color change, and then the Unicode for the character. So that's what changes the color and then prints the character. But anyway, we want to do this 5,000 times, and so I've added a for loop to make that happen. So thinking about those three essentials, so we talked about the counter variable, and it's just an integer, okay, and you set it up with a starting value. In this case, I called my variable counter. It doesn't have to be called counter, but I did it this time because it's our first one, and I want you to see that's the counter variable. So it's just a little integer. This is the little guy I was talking about counting on his fingers. So we've started counting at 1. You could start counting anywhere, 0, whatever, but I've started 1 here because it's more intuitive for us. And then this is essential number 2, which is our loop condition, or the relational expression, and this is going to evaluate to true or false, okay? So in this case, counter starts at 1. First time through the loop. Is 1 less than or equal to 5,000? Yes, that's true. And when you get a true, the loop body executes. This is the loop body, and it's just one line of code here, which is to print the smiley face. So I'm going to get a smiley face. All right, so that's essential number 2. It's that loop condition, or the relational expression, which evaluates to true or false. And when you get a true, the loop is going to run. So this, these two together really control the loop and whether or not it's going to run again, or whether or not it's time to stop. Okay, and then finally, this is an important essential. This is essential number 3, which is the increment expression. We've got to keep counter moving up, up, up. Otherwise, it would always stay at 1. 1 is always going to be less than 5,000, and the loop is just never going to end. So incrementing counter, this is our increment operator. It'll increment that counter variable by 1 with every iteration of the loop. That's a word I'd like you to know. An iteration of the loop is a repetition of the loop. It's the loop, executing one time, printing one smiley face in this case. So with every iteration of the loop, the counter will be incremented. Okay, so eventually counter is going to get up to 5001. And at that point, this condition becomes false. And when it becomes false, the loop ends and it's finally done. Okay. And then it would continue on to the next statement in the code, which is just our return statement here. The program ends. So that's the basic anatomy of the for loop. And the reason I like the for loop so much for beginners is all of those 3 essentials are baked into the syntax. Okay, it's like it's really hard to forget one of these because they're all part of that basic syntax here. This is called the loop header, by the way. That's like the top of the loop. That's the loop header. I already mentioned the loop body is the line of code that will execute. But all of those essentials are baked into the header, and so you can't really forget one. That's not the case with the while loop, which we'll talk about later. But anyway, okay, so that's it for this video, and we'll keep going with the for loop in the next video.